Hello and welcome to Lecture 3-3, Construct, Validity, and External Validity. This is the second part of our lecture on establishing validity in research designs. What we're talking about here is being able to generalize from the observables, the variables, back to the constructs, those vague, intangible ideas about the program and its outcomes. In the figure shown on your screen, then, we are dealing with the vertical arrows, the blue arrows, when we talk about construct validity. Remember, you cannot, in some sense of the word, see the program. We only see the things we choose to measure about it as far as the evaluation is concerned. We cannot see the outcomes, just the things we measure about them. We cannot see the linking constructs. We define these things by the ways in which we operationalize them. In Module 4, we will spend more time talking about operationalization and how to do measurements, and we'll deal with validity again there. But here we need to deal with 4 threats to construct validity that result from the way in which the program and its evaluation have been implemented. So these types of construct validity fit in under the general category of threats to being able to conclude that the independent variable causes the dependent variable, that the program causes the outcomes. The 4 threats we'll be talking about in this lecture to construct validity are diffusion of treatments, compensatory equalization of treatments, compensatory rivalry, and finally, resentful demoralization. These are all threats in multi-group designs. Diffusion of treatments. Briefly, this occurs when the treatment or program, which the researcher believes is only being received by the experimental group or program participants, is actually somehow being received by those in the control group, being received by people who are not in the program. So the researcher believes these people are not receiving the benefits of the program, but they actually are receiving the benefits of the program. This is most likely to occur if program participants are somehow sharing the benefits of the program. An example would be a program intended to educate expectant mothers on the benefits of certain prenatal care regimes, for example, taking vitamins. If the program participants share this information with others who are not in the program, the treatment is said to be diffused, and the measurement of the construct receiving program benefits is not valid. Compensatory equalization of treatments. As inferred by the name of this threat, this problem occurs when someone, often but not necessarily those administering the treatment or the program, compensates somehow for the unequal treatment given to the control group. In this case, the control group does not actually receive the same treatment as those in the program, so it's a bit different from the previous threat we talked about, but instead do receive some sort of special treatment. This means that the comparison of outcomes for the two groups is not based on the differences as measured by the evaluator. Thus, those classified as not receiving the treatment are not measured correctly. Compensatory rivalry and resentful demoralization. These are actually 2 sides of the same coin. Compensatory rivalry refers to a situation in which the members of the control group feel a rivalry with those in the program or the experimental group. As a result, these people try harder, behave differently than their baseline behavior. Resentful demoralization is the opposite. Members of the control group in this situation give up, do not try as hard as they would with their baseline behavior. An example of this might occur in the study of a new teaching technique in a single school or even a set of schools in geographical proximity to one another. Teachers in classes not chosen to receive the special attention afforded by the new program may wind up either trying harder than usual or not trying as hard as usual in reaction to this. External validity has to do with the degree to which the results of a study can be generalized to and across populations of persons, of settings, of times, of outcomes, and even of treatment variations. A good synonym for external validity is generalizing validity or generalizability, because it always has to do with how well you can generalize your research results. The major types of external validity are population validity, ecological validity, temporal validity, treatment variation validity, and outcome validity. So let's take a moment to discuss each of these. The first type of external validity is called population validity. Population validity is the ability to generalize the study results to individuals who were not included in the study. The issues are how well you can generalize your sample results to a population. We haven't really discussed sampling much yet in the class, but typically we don't deal with an entire population of people. We deal with a sample of people. We don't deal with an entire population of organizations. We deal with a sample of organizations. Whatever it is we're studying, we deal with a sample of them, a small group of them, that we hope are representative of the larger group that we hope to generalize to. Generalizing from a sample to a population can be done through random selection techniques. In other words, a random sample. A good random sample lets you generalize to a population. Generalizing across populations is present when the result, the effectiveness of a particular teaching technique, for example, a particular program, works across many different kinds of people. It works for subpopulations, in other words. So this is the issue of how widely does the finding apply. This is different from generalizing from a sample to a population. Now we're talking about generalizing from one population to another, or from one subpopulation or subgroup of people to another. For example, if we conduct our program among 5th graders, does it work equally as well among 4th graders or 6th graders? Both of these two kinds of population validity are important. However, some methodologists, such as Cook and Campbell, are more concerned about generalizing across populations. That is, they want to know how widely a finding applies. Others prefer to think more about, and we will also focus more upon the first type of generalizing, which is generalizing from a sample to a specified population under study. Ecological validity, the second type of external validity, is present to the degree that a result generalizes across different settings. For example, let's say you find a new teaching technique works in urban schools. You might also want to know if the same technique works in rural schools, suburban schools, etc. That is, you would want to know if the technique works across different settings. Reactivity is a primary threat to ecological validity. Reactivity is defined as an alteration in performance that occurs as a result of being aware of participating in a study. In other words, reactivity occurs sometimes because research study participants might change their performance because they know they're being observed. Reactivity is a problem of ecological validity because the results might only generalize to other people who are also being observed. A good metaphor for reactivity comes from television. Once you know that the camera is turned on to you, you might shift into your television behavior. This can also happen in research studies with human participants who know they're being observed. Another primary threat to ecological validity is called experimenter effects. This threat occurs when participants alter their performance because of some unintentional behavior or characteristic of the researcher. Researchers should be aware of this problem and do their best to prevent it from happening. Temporal validity is the extent to which the study results can be generalized across time. This one's pretty obvious. For example, assume you find that a certain technique, a certain program, works well with many different kinds of children in many different settings. But after several years, you might note that it's not working anymore. You will need to conduct additional research to make sure the technique, the program, is robust over time. And if not, to figure out why and to find out what works better now. Likewise, findings from far in the past often need to be replicated to make sure they still work. Treatment variation validity is the degree to which one can generalize the results of the study across variation of the treatment. For example, if the treatment is varied a little, if the program is varied a little, will the results be similar? One reason this is important is because when a program is administered in the field, it is unlikely that the program will be administered exactly as it was by the original organization, the original people implementing the program. This is, by the way, one reason that interventions have been shown to work, interventions that have been shown to work in one place end up failing when they're broadly applied in the field. It's not that they don't generalize to another population or across another setting or across time. The problem is that the people administering the program have slightly altered it, but altered it in a significant way that causes it not to work anymore. Outcome validity is the degree to which one can generalize the results of a study across different but related dependent variables. For example, if a study shows that a program has a positive effect on self-esteem, will it also show a positive effect on the related construct of self-efficacy? If the program shows a positive effect on heroin users, will it also have a positive effect on crystal meth users? So we're talking about generalizing across related dependent variables or related outcomes. A good way to understand outcome validity of your research is to include several different outcome measures so that you can get a more complete picture of the overall effect of the treatment or the intervention. You've reached the end of this lecture. Feel free to come back at any point in time and view it again. Please proceed to the homework assigned for the chapter. If you have any questions about this or any other lecture, feel free to contact me.